G'day YouTube. First video since I got back from Europe. Let me just pull up here. I coach a rider last year under 19 for next year, so he's got one more year in the under 19s next year. He's gotten some interest from some teams over in Europe, but they are asking for VO2 max testing data. That's actually quite unusual. Most teams will just ask for results and power data. The problem is getting that tested in Australia is very expensive because it needs to be done in a lab. You need to have expensive equipment to measure the gas exchange, and you also need a qualified lab technician to run it. To help Joss out, I got in touch with my old uni lecturer from back in the day at Australian Catholic University, or ACU, and said, look, is there any way we can squeeze Joss in for a VO2 max test? Are there any students that need to practice their testing? He said, look, yes, we can fit him in. Come out to the new Sports Science Hub in Blacktown, which is an absolute lifesaver. These tests, probably $350, $400 if you want to do them. For those of you who don't know Sydney, most densely populated areas are along the coast and around the city. Coming out to Blacktown is basically riding across the city, out through the inner west, and then into the scary western suburbs. So I used to do loops out this way all the time. Very good training, very uninterrupted, so I'm quite happy to ride out here. But yeah, now I live in pretty much in the middle of the city. It is quite rare that I get to come out here, so this has dragged me out to Western Sydney. I do think I'll need to come out here a bit more often for some of my longer rides. How you doing?
Yeah, all right. Ready to suffer.
Alrighty, Josiah, we're going to start the ramp. 20 watts a minute, so just pick that cadence up and keep pedaling as long as it can.
Dr. Phil Chapman here. You don't put that in your email bio. You say Phil Chapman, PhD. You don't go doctor. What's the...
Oh, I don't want people confused that I'm not a medical doctor.
Okay.
VO2 max definitely is a ceiling of potential. I mean, he's very young. I think he can see an improvement in VO2 max. But by the time you're in your early 20s, VO2 max, if you're an elite athlete, won't change. You know, Cadell Evans was tested at the AIS when he was, I think it was first year senior. He had a VO2 max of 87 mils per kilo. When he won the Tour de France, 15 years later, it was still 87 mils per kilo.
Right.
So that ceiling there, but the difference was that it took him 15 years to be able to ride at a very high fraction of his VO2 max. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think is that teams might want to see where that ceiling, but only a few guys can have VO2 maxes around 90 mils per kilo, but a lot of great bike riders are still around 70 mils per kilo and win a lot of races. So you just got to find your niche within the sport. Okay, now we can use the 400. Yeah, that's it, work for it. That's your favorite steps.
Yeah, that's it, work for it.
That's it, come on. This is where it counts. Good start. That's it. Pull up there, come on, Josh. Finish it. It's going to ramp up. Okay, let's go for it. Let's go, come on. Good work, Ed. Going down.
That was hard, wasn't it?
Oh, that hurts. I don't think that's ever going to be easy. But I guess that's what you want to aim to kind of find your limit and beyond.
Joss has to email the results, obviously, to the
so
team.
I think anything 65, 70, is a good for an endurance cyclist. Anything higher than that is really good.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so because he's a young man, he's still developing, still a teenager, still probably just finishing puberty, so those things you have to take into account.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we're back home. Phil sent through the results, and Joss's results were good. His VO2 max in milliliters per kilogram per minute were in the high 60s, and Josiah's power at that VO2 max was just over 400 watts. So a good result, but not an exceptional result. And I would say Joss's progression on the road and ability on the road in the last 6 to 8 months has been exceptional. And that's why I'm not a fan of these one-off VO2 max tests. They don't have context of prior training, point in the season. So just doing them one-off and having a team pick through that, I don't think is a good way of selecting riders. There are some numbers in terms of improvement you could expect. An average training athlete could expect to see up to 10% improvement in that number. That's the bog standard number. I've seen higher than that. Like we've seen examples, a study here from actually one of the endurance athletes has had the highest ever recorded VO2 max number. And they did a study on him because he got tested every few years, junior world champion. But you can see here the progression in his VO2 max when he first got tested, coming from alpine skiing to cycling, was 74.6. And then he went from 74.6 to 83.4 to 86.8, 85.1, 96.7 at his peak. That's way more than a 10% improvement. So I do think with the right training, there's no reason Joss couldn't get up into the high 70s. I think that is entirely possible. You can also run the protocols yourself at home with your trainer. Joss has a Wahoo kicker, he can do this at home. Phil was just controlling and running the protocol through the Wahoo app connected to the trainer. And then going on from that, if you want to make it more realistic and do a field test on the road, your power at VO2 max correlates very closely to your peak 5-minute power. So if I wanted to, I could tell Joss every 6 weeks, go out and do a 5-minute max test on the road up a climb, and that would very well track improvements in his VO2 max. And that's it. It was actually really fun to go out as me personally, as a coach who have specialized my business in delivering training online over the past 6 years is what I'm good at. Going and having something in person to see, catch up with an athlete, see them go through a test is kind of cool. It's not something I do very often at all because it's just not part of my business. But yeah, I enjoyed going out there and making this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll catch you in the next one.